Edith Morales tried to outrun the F5. She took cover at 7-Eleven with a handful of others.
They're digging, trying to find people.
In the storm's wake, a flood of volunteers, barefoot helpers, searched for survivors buried under soda, drywall, twisted metal.
We got flip cars, make sure nobody's there.
I don't think so.
Hey guys, we gotta start checking these cars!
They found bodies instead.
We successfully got people out, just not alive.
Yeah, there's a few people didn't make it.
Edith Morales' daughter ran more than a mile to the 7-Eleven that used to stand here. She knew her mom was in the cooler. They had been on the phone together when the tornado hit and the connection was lost. Edith Morales rode out the storm with 3 others, Terry Long, Megan Futrell, and Megan's infant son.
I kind of looked around and I thought, there's no way she's okay.
Working in the shadow of Moore Medical Center was chaos. Authorities told Christina there were no survivors.
I said, my mom was here, she was in the cooler. I was on the phone with her, were there any survivors? And he said, no, there were no survivors. And I said, okay. Are you sure? Nobody, no one. He said, no, the only people we pulled out of here were not alive.
Firefighters had recovered several bodies at that point. She was asked to identify her mom from a picture.
I looked at the picture and I still couldn't tell. Looking at her, I said, I can't tell that it is her and I can't tell that it's not her.
Turns out Edith Morales had been pulled from the cooler at 7-Eleven alive. Rescued by strangers, rushed to Southwest Medical Center, her family had no idea. When her sister Janet Rudolph and her daughter Christina first saw her, she was drifting in and out of consciousness. She was barely there.
I tell you what though, someone up there's had their hand on my sister. I know this whole time because it's got to be a God thing.
Edith Morales' body had been battered by that tornado. Her spine was severed, 6 vertebrae splintered, right lung collapsed, both hands were crushed, every bone in her face was broken, along with a rib and both shoulder blades. Doctors said she would never walk again.
Her spine was broken in the front and in the back, so it hit her on both sides and it broke her spine.
The hospital personnel here, surgeons and all, said that the first responders finding her so quickly and getting her so quickly is what saved her life. And we want to thank them very, very much.
Surgeons stitched Edith back together, machines helped her breathe, but E. coli bacteria was destroying her healthy tissue. Infection was taking over. 3 days in, she flatlined.
Everybody came up and we just gathered around her, prayed and said, it's going to be fine, don't worry, and we're going to get through this, just keep on fighting.
They prayed, and she started to heal. Edith Morales fought her way from death's door. 50 days in the ICU this day.
Her life has been changed forever, and so is ours. And we just want everybody to remember her.
Because of the damage to her lungs, Edie has been on a ventilator the entire time, unable to speak until today.
Nice and loud. Take a deep breath in and talk nice and loud for us.
Hi.
How's that? Yeah?
Christina Morales last heard her mom's voice May 20th, that frantic cell phone call from 7-Eleven.
This is the first time I've heard her voice, so it's pretty amazing.
She is rediscovering her voice now, remembering moments she has wished to erase.
It was bad. The wind was screaming. And after that, I don't remember much now.
Edith has no recollection of her rescue, no idea until today The others who had huddled with her in that 7-Eleven did not make it out alive.
I'm sorry they didn't make it. I'm surprised. I did. There's been times I didn't think I was gonna make it.
The weight of her own survival is crushing.
You're remarkable. From the day you got here to now, you have made more progress than anybody ever thought you would, honey.
I'm getting bigger, not bigger.
Not
I'm
bigger.
getting stronger.
Got stronger.
And this arm here is sewn to my side.
Surgeons sewed Edie's hand into her abdomen.
That's it. So it's all bandaged right here, and that's where it's attached to her stomach.
A workaround so skin could grow to cover the hand. They'll separate it later if it works.
Good Lord. Jesus, there ain't any other way. That was horrible.
Edith is paralyzed but anxious for progress. Hand-scribbled get-wells are a constant reminder of who's waiting at home.
I used to sit and watch my grandkids play and my kids. I hope I can run with them.
Before Edith can go home, though, she'll need long-term care, another huge challenge for Edie. You see, she doesn't have medical insurance.
She's fighting with everything that she has, and we're just at a point now where she needs a different level of care that we're fighting to be able to get for her.
Edith and her family are faithful. They are hopeful she will get the help she needs to continue her recovery. She has made it so far already. From the bottom of that pile of debris to the medical sanctuary of intensive care, Edith Morales lies in this bed paralyzed, struggling to breathe still, broken and yet blessed, grateful, reminded every day she is a survivor. Allie Meyer, News Channel 4. The images of that day are indelible. The sounds of desperation and the sadness of that location. The 7-Eleven where 8 people went for safety from the storm. Some did not survive, and those who did are permanently damaged, disfigured, and paralyzed. We first met Edith Morales 50 days after the tornado. She was still in ICU, barely breathing on her own. She hadn't spoken since the storm. Her first words, fragmented recall about the terror inside the bathroom at 7-Eleven.
It was bad. The wind was screaming.
And the anguish about those who lost their lives.
I'm sorry they didn't make it. I'm surprised. I did.
When we first talked with Edith, she was sort of trapped in the hospital, not healthy enough to go home, not wealthy enough to afford long-term care. Remember, Edith doesn't have health insurance, and that means no admission to a long-term live-in rehab facility for her. After our story aired, several relief organizations stepped up and provided the funding Edith Morales needed to move to a long-term care facility. 5 weeks after the story aired, and Edith is making major progress.
And it does everything that she needs to.
Edith is out of bed today, sitting in a chair this morning. She just finished physical therapy for her arm, which was surgically attached to her abdomen for weeks.
And see, I can move my fingers and my thumb a little to sit in the chair. That's been a big accomplishment. I was worried if I was going to be able to physically sit with my back and everything, being paralyzed.
Edith has new glasses provided by viewers who came to the hospital, who updated her prescription and fit her for new frames. Her window ledge is lined with Crayola well wishes from around the globe, folks who saw our story and wanted to write.
It's really inspirational when you get a card that says they're praying for you and everything, and that means a lot, especially if I'm hurting too much that day to feels like I can't take it anymore, then it helps.
Support has been overwhelming. Another viewer donated this power wheelchair. And a few weeks ago, Edie got a surprise hospital visit from an Oklahoma City police officer, the officer who helped save her life.
I just briefly told her that we were thinking of her and hope she recovers well, and if she needs anything, just to let us know.
Major Brian Jennings pulled Edith out of the rubble that day, his heroic.
We got flip cars, make sure nobody's there.
Digging for victims at the 7-Eleven captured on video.
The smell of soda and sports drinks and gasoline all mixed together was just kind of, you couldn't get that smell out of your nose there that day. Everybody there was covered in dirt and mud and debris and blood, and so it was hard to distinguish who was who at that time.
Edie's injuries were some of the worst. Jennings, like so many, is thrilled with her progress. The wound vacuums have all been removed, her tracheotomy is closed, her fractures healing, her hair is growing. Her daughter Christina by her side every day and every night.
Her breathing is 10 times better. Her voice is almost normal, like it sounded before everything happened. She's doing really 1,000 times better.
The Red Cross is paying the bill here with dollars raised after the Moore tornado. They coordinated with several other organizations to make sure Edie's needs were met. Her sister Janet Rudolph says she gets stronger every day.
It is remarkable. We're very proud of her. She's got a long road, but she's toughing it out. She's working hard. Well, we love her, and we want to thank everybody out there for all of their concerns and prayers and help.
Yes, Edith Morales has come so far and still has quite a long road ahead.
Some days are harder, but some days are real good.
Allie Meyer, News Channel 4.
I get to go home today.
Words Edith Morales thought she would never say. She was buried alive when the Moore tornado destroyed the 7-Eleven she took shelter in. Rescuers pulled her out from under the debris, a tomb for these three who did not make it out alive. Her injuries were critical: a severed spinal cord, splintered vertebrae, collapsed lungs, crushed bones in her hands and face. Doctors say she will never walk again. But today the focus is not on her injuries, but on her recovery at home, something her sister Janet and her daughter Christina are praising God for.
And she's so excited and happy to finally have this day here.
Yeah, we've waited for a long time, 125 days. We weren't sure that was going to come, and now it's here. And thank you, God.
It's the most exciting thing. Thank you, God.
Yes.
And she's not going away empty-handed. Edith is taking stacks of get-well cards sent from all over the world. She says during the darkest times, these cards meant the world to her.
My room's not big enough at home to hang them all up. I'm going to put them into a book.
Her journey is not over. Once she's strong enough, she'll be back for more rehab and more surgery. But right now, the only thing she cares about is the excitement of loading up and the hugs and tears as she says goodbye for now to the people who helped her live.
Thank you for taking care of me and getting me to the point where I can say, I will talk to you later and I'm going home.
We're looking at probably half-mile wide, and it's really picked up its speed. It's headed still kind of towards the
6 months ago, on an anxious Monday afternoon, the world watched on live TV as Moore, Oklahoma hunkered down and prayed for deliverance from the worst storm of their lives.
We got flip cars, make sure nobody's there.
And for so many, there is no rest from that nightmare.
Watch out.
When they close their eyes, they are back on that Monday afternoon, fighting for life.
The tornadoes are in my dreams. One day, hopefully they'll be gone.
Edith Morales is one of those victims pulled from the bottom of a rubble pile at the 7-Eleven on the corner of 4th and Telephone Road. 50 days in the ICU, she finally spoke, and we were there.
It was bad. The wind was He was screaming. And after that, I don't remember much, you know.
It would be another 75 days before Edie would get to go home, stitched back together by surgeons and generosity. Strangers from around the globe donated their kindness, her wheelchair, a car. They paid medical bills and showed Edie there was hope when she'd nearly lost hers.
I'm grateful to so many. They send cards that kept me, I think, kept me hanging on. When there was days I didn't think I could get through it.
Recovery has been intense. Paralyzed, doctors are still fighting infection in Edie's left arm. They'll amputate if it doesn't heal. Christina Morales quit her job to care for her mom.
I'm thankful that I get to do this. You know, I know a lot of kids wouldn't, a lot of families couldn't. So I'm glad I'm there every day.
It is a new kind of everyday for Edie and her whole family. They are thankful, prayerful, and optimistic about her new life. It's been 12 months and the southwest corner of 4th and Telephone Road is still empty. A slab, a memorial, a reminder that 3 people ran into the 7-Eleven for protection and never came out. Terry Long and Megan and Case Futrell lost their lives at the 7-Eleven, but there were survivors. Brianna Bellman, E.H. Pittman, Athena Howard, and Edith Morales. Edith's injuries were among the most critical that day. Her spine was broken. Her spirit was not.
Nice and loud. Take a deep breath in and talk nice and loud for us.
50 days in the ICU, she spoke her first words, and we were there.
It was bad. The wind was, it was screaming.
125 days in the hospital, and Edith finally went home.
I get to go home.
Edith lives each day grateful for those who sacrificed for her in those first moments, for the police officers who pulled her out, and for a guardian angel who sat with her and held her hand while she waited for an ambulance.
I knew that if the ambulance and stuff didn't get there fast enough, that, she was losing blood and she needed to be on her way to the hospital.
Sarah Southward lived 2 blocks from 7-Eleven. She ran to the store that day and she stayed. As the sirens went off a second time and the rain came down, she stayed. She tried to stop the bleeding. Sarah was a lifeline of support when Edith needed it most.
You can lose everything in a moment just like that. Because one minute we were standing on the street watching the clouds, and the next we were digging people out of the 7-Eleven. In a matter of 20 minutes. And that's all it takes for you to lose everything.
And this day, Edith Morales will get a chance to meet with 2 of the people who saved her life on May 20th.
Are you nervous? A little. All of a sudden I'm real nervous.
Don't be nervous.
We're back at 7-Eleven. None of them have been back since that day.
Hey, young lady.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing a lot better.
You look very good.
Thank you.
You look very good.
That shadow on the pavement is Major Brian Jennings.
We got flip cars. Make sure nobody's there.
He is standing right now not far from where he was that afternoon as he led the rescue and recovery effort at 7-Eleven. Jennings can still remember how badly Edith's body had been battered by that storm.
I could tell it was bad. She had severe head wounds. I don't remember her being conscious at all. I remember her moaning.
And he remembers the young gal from across the street who held Edie's hand through the whole ordeal, Sarah Southward.
Sarah.
Sarah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you officially.
They have thought of each other often in the past 12 months. They have each prayed for healing and restoration for all of the families.
I just wished everybody could have made it that day.
This trip across the parking lot is more difficult than you can imagine.
This is hard to come out here, the parts I can remember, and then waking up. Finally, after 2 months in ICU, I went through a lot of things to get back to feeling good again. It took her and Officer Jennings and a lot of people that helped save me that day, and I'm very grateful.
She's wearing all her rings on the right hand. The left is still healing, though there is one missing, her late husband's wedding ring, lost on May 20th. Nearly a year later, and they are still hopeful they might spot it, Edith has learned to hope for the impossible.
I feel blessed. I'm here. It's tragic to me for the ones that aren't. That's what bothers me.
1 year out, their wounds are mending, but the pain of this place on that day is still fresh. Allie Meyer, News Channel 4. Edith Morales ran into the bathroom at 7-Eleven to take cover. She was pulled out of the rubble pile, unconscious, paralyzed, her spine crushed from the front and from the back. Every bone in her face was broken.
Everybody there was covered in dirt and mud and debris and blood, and so it was hard to distinguish who was who at that time.
Edie was rescued from the 7-Eleven by strangers, rushed to the hospital, hooked up to a ventilator, teetering between life and death for weeks.
Nice and loud. Take a deep breath in and talk nice and loud for us.
We first met Edith Morales 50 days after the tornado. Still in ICU, we were there as her daughter heard her voice for the first time.
It was bad. The wind was, it was screaming.
Her wounds so severe, surgeons sewed her hand into her abdomen to heal.
So it's all bandaged right here, and that's where it's attached to her stomach.
A month later, Edith graduated to a rehab center. That arm still in danger of amputation. 125 days after the tornado, and Edie got to go home.
I'm grateful to so many. They send cards that kept me, I think, kept me hanging on.
On the 1-year anniversary of the Moore tornado, Edith met up with some of her rescuers to say thank you for all they'd done for her and for so many others that day.
I just wished everybody could have made it that day.
4 years on, and she is still settling into her own survival. The loss of those who'd huddled with her that day is with her still.
I lived when others didn't, and that's why I try to stay happy about being here. It's been a hard road.
Edith has no feeling below her waist. Her hand is deformed, but she didn't lose it. She has made more progress than doctors ever expected.
She amazed everybody with as fast as she did recover, and being able to continue to make progress.
She has nightmares and headaches, pieces of debris still lodged in her skull.
They said everything looked good on my brain, but they could still see a lot of debris. And I can literally feel it when I touch my head in places.
The last of her wounds healed up a few months ago. Edith moved in with her daughter's family, a grandmother's dream come true, because remember, from the very beginning, Edith had just one wish.
Just to sit and watch my grandkids play and my kids. I hope I can run with them.
2 more grandsons have come along since the tornado. There's a granddaughter on the way soon.
This is how you hold it. You hold it just like this.
For Edith, every day brings new challenges and new joy. For her, life is a reminder. Her body was broken. Her spirit was not.
Run for you. Try to get me.
Allie Meyer, Oklahoma's News 4.